'Tis the old ship of Zion. 'Tis the old ship of Zion. 'Tis the old ship of Zion. Get on board. Get on board. I was lost in sin and sorrow on an island life's dark sea. When I saw far in the distance there a ship it seemed to be, then I saw the captain beckon, and he called out loud and free, I have come, my child, to save you. Step on board and follow me. There's no danger in the water. There's no danger in the water. There's no danger in the water. Get on board. Get on board.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Jeff Arrington here with Scott County, Virginia Gun Owners, coming to you live again on Thursday. It is April 23rd. It's a little after 8:40 p.m. here in Scott County in the community of Hiltons, Virginia. And just coming to you live. Haven't done a show again here in a while. I apologize, but we're going to be just a few things I want to talk with you about tonight. We're going to have a little call in here after a while. If you guys are interested, call in and, a chance just to maybe for some of you just to reach out and talk, and maybe you'll be able to bring us some news, some different things. But tonight's show, just wanted to kind of cover mostly we're going to talk a lot about COVID-19 tonight and have some interesting dialogue around that and exactly how this epidemic is being, for lack of a better term, taken advantage of, maybe, or militarized, or whatever you want to call it, to further the grip that many of the little tyrants, as I might refer to them, around our country are trying to expand their grasp on our liberties and on our freedom. So I do see we have David Fodder online. We've also got some folks. I believe this is maybe David on there. I see it says Fish, and I said hello. Good to see you guys. Glad to have you online. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and just we're going to do like we did last time here. It got interesting for those of you who might have seen our last call-in show. We had an interesting call-in from somebody out west who wanted to get a little colorful, and it's just interesting to see how the trolls just kind of come out of nowhere whenever they, whenever someone's calling them out for the lies and the deceit and the just wickedness that they throw out. So it's good to see you guys online. I see we've got 9 others online. Don't know how long tonight's going to go. This was just kind of a last second thing. It started raining here. I was going to get on here, and my brother-in-law, we were going to play cards. We're going to play cards. We're going to do this. And it just turns out that he ended up running out and had some other plans. So that was good. Worked out all right. I had some training at the last second to do it. And it just worked out that I had some free time. So I'm glad to be here. Certainly glad to be here. Old School Wolf Media. Great to see you there, brother. Gosh, well, let me just kind of, I guess one thing I'll throw out there real quick is, why has it been since it's been a pretty good gap since we've had another show. Cindy, good to see you there. Great to have you online. Travis Anderson. We got done playing around. Been a minute. Good day, Scott, and rest. Great to see you guys. Just want to let you guys know what I'm working on. We are in the works. I've been trying to work with a group out of New Hampshire. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail yet about it, but in one of our local Virginia groups, there was a gentleman on there, and long story short, there was kind of some comments around saying that Virginia was kind of a lost cause, and that why are you wasting your time in Virginia trying to do anything else? And for those of you who are on here, I see Travis is on here and others, Cindy and others. Virginia is far from a lost cause. And I reached out to this individual group that was from New Hampshire. They have a publication that they put out there. And what's been keeping me busy, there's been several nights, I'm not going to lie to you guys, that I really thought I was going to have the chance to do a live show. And I told them when I reached out to them after I seen some of their posts, I told them, I said, guys, I'm going to make a deal with you. I said, I'll write an article for you that you can post, and I'm going to tell you why Virginia's not lost. But I said, you got to come on my show too. Because I said, I want your viewers to see you come out here. And if you're going to say things like that, let's talk about it. Right. I get their points. I want to be very, very clear. I'm not saying that, if we sit back and do nothing, Virginia is a lost cause. If we sit back and just give someone else the reins, if you sit back and just expect me or someone else to do this, then Virginia is going to be a lost cause. It's going to take all of us to do this. This is not my battle. This is not Delenn's good to see. It's not Delenn's battle. It's not Travis's battle. This is not your neighbor's battle. This is your battle as much as it is anybody else's battle. And whether you're in the Commonwealth of Virginia or whether you're in Kentucky or wherever it is you may be, this is your battle. Because what's happening here will happen to you eventually if it continues here. It is a cancer that has been planted in our republic, and it's going to continue to grow. So on those nights, whenever I thought I'd have time to do a show, I had submitted the article to them, and we've went through a couple of revisions. Their editors keep coming back, so we've had a couple of revisions of this article. And every night I thought I would have a chance for a free show or for a live show. They've came back and wanted some changes. So I've been working around, pretty busy staying with trying to get that article out there for them. When that article is out there, I will publish it. I'll certainly share it with you guys. I think it's coming together. I will have to say their editors are doing a fantastic job. It's coming together. I think it's going to be a great article either way. So done playing around. It isn't over until it's over, and this is far from being over. Brother, you are right. This is far from being over. Even when we might think it is, God still wins. Around here, we call that a win-win situation. Amen. Hey, listen, there was a good video I was watching today, and someone said, I know exactly what it was. As a matter of fact, it was a video I posted from an old Billy Graham. I'm guessing it was one of his revivals. And, and he said, I don't depend on the government. I don't put my faith in the money. I don't put my faith in my neighbor or anybody else. He said, my faith is in God, and in God I know for a fact I win. And he is exactly right. There is nothing in this life that is guaranteed to us, but in the afterlife, if you're a saved soul or if you're not a saved soul, there's a guarantee. In the afterlife, you're going one of two places, folks. I pray for all of y'all, and I pray for all of y'all come to find the Lord as your Savior, and that's you'll be in heaven with me, and I'd be glad to see you there. So, anyways, it is not over till it's over. We do have a long fight ahead of us. In that article, I do delineate a little bit of how I think some of that's going to happen, and I also talk about the fact that what we're up against is a whole lot less than what our forefathers were up against in 1776, and if they can pull it off, then quite frankly, I would say we not only do we owe it to ourselves and our future generations, we owe it to them for doing this, right? I mean, there are many soldiers and sailors, men and women all around this world that have given their life for our rights. And if we just turn our back on that, then we're turning our back on them. If we're turning our back on our liberties, whether you want to practice your liberty or not, that's your choice. But if you're saying that liberty should be shoved down, then you're turning your back on those soldiers and sailors, pure and simple. Leighton, Brennan, Click, it's great to see you guys. Glad to have you on here. It's been a while. It's good to see you guys. All right. Well, I wanted to talk a few things tonight. The main thing that's really been on my heart here lately, dealing with a lot of folks. Oh, we've already got someone calling in here. Let's see what happens here. This is Jeff. Who we have? Hello, this is Jeff.
Hi, I'm calling about your problem in Virginia. might have a solution for you.
Yeah, who we talking to?
Hello?
Who we talking to? Who we got on the line? What's your name?
My name is David Fedora. I'm from Illinois.
Oh, David, great to have you online, brother. Yeah, well, let's hear what you got for us.
All right. I want to talk about Title 18, and it's USC, which is United States Code, Section 242. Now, we can put a little description in your chat box here in a few minutes. But in Illinois today, they extended our lockdown until the end of May, 1st of June, and they may do it again. One of the problems is that we have no recourse to fight these guys on their own ground. But if you Google 18 USC Section 242, the politicians can be prosecuted criminally for violating our constitutional rights. And that's not just gun rights, Second Amendment, although that's included in there, but it covers everything else that they're violating currently.
Absolutely.
So what I would like to do is every person that's in this chat room, and I want them to send an email to President Trump saying that you want him to direct the Department of Justice to properly process all of the complaints that everyone's going to file. Now, if you go into Department of Justice, if you Google the 18 USC Section 242 and take a look at that, it's got on there how to file criminal complaints against these politicians. But just having just taking them to court and ended up in the Supreme Court years down the road, it's just not going to cut it, guys. We're in a situation now where I heard today that the UN put out that we're going to have a food shortage like we've never seen before.
Yes, sir.
We need to do some action now. We need to hold these criminals accountable. We need to make them pay fines for their violation of oaths. And if I can get every person to send an email to President Trump stating that we need him to direct the Department of Justice to make them process those complaints as they should, we might have a chance here.
Yeah, and David, I know it's been a while since we've talked, and I apologize that I've not reached back out sooner. But no, you bring up a great point, and I just want to make sure. I'm not sure if the audio on your phone's coming through there, but you're referring to it's 18. It's the United States Code USC 242 out of Section 18.
That's correct, yes.
That's correct. So and then the call out there is just to ask folks to go out there, send an email to President Trump and any other I would say possibly their legislators or state senators, and urge them to properly process all the requests that are coming in. You know, you bring in some great points.
I had a
go ahead.
email discussion with Senator Amanda Chase. She's one of your politicians over there, and she agreed with me that they don't have the time and the resources to do a campaign like this. But, guys, let me tell you something. Every person, whether they're gun owners or not, need to send an email to President Trump about prosecuting this so we can actually file these complaints. And like I said, it covers more than just the Second Amendment. We have to take a stand.
Absolutely.
And, I see a lot of keyboard warriors, saying, oh, we're ready for the boo-boo and everything else. Well,
right.
I don't know how many of them have actually been in a war, but let me tell you something. That's definitely not a good situation. We're going to be putting our families in danger here, and I hate to see that. We have one final way to solve this problem before that's actually necessary, and this is the last thing. I want everybody to share with gun owners, non-gun owners, with every gun club, everybody that you know, to send Trump an email. And I'm reaching out to every state. I'm reaching out to every person that'll stop and listen. Trump's facing an election this year, and he's going to be under pressure. Don't be afraid to put in an email. If you don't support us in this, we're not going to support you in November.
Absolutely. I mean, we definitely need to pressure our elected servants to be sure that they do understand. I mean, they're there to serve us and what we're asking of them. So I agree with you, David. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know how many people you reach out to, but, if you can, put it out on every show, put it out on put it in comments of every video you watch. This is something, and this is about the only way that I can see that we can fight this thing. When they show up at your front door to take your guns, well, that's already too late.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because there are many fronts right now. And so, I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying. I remember a while back, you and I talked a little bit about this code, and there were some even things in Virginia that we referred to. So, I think the way we're going to beat this, regardless of exactly how it goes, we're going to beat this by standing together, right? The greatest power in America is not the president. It's not the Congress. It's not our states individually. It's the people. That is the power of this nation. And if we can somehow find the way to unite and yield that power, then in this country, there's no greater power than that. So if you could, David, I'm assuming you're watching the feed. If you could put it, would you care to post a comment here in a few minutes with a link or maybe some comments to that?
In the chat room here in a few minutes.
Perfect.
Another thought I want to leave you with.
Sure.
Okay. Oh boy, just lost the doggone train of thought. Oh, the Democrats win by voter fraud.
Mm-hmm.
They have illegal aliens voting and everything else. If we use this method, this plan, it doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican that's in office. That's the end of it. If they won the election, so what? If we can get Trump to move on this thing and prosecute these doggone, well, I call them political terrorists is what I call them. Of course, there's a few other more colorful words I could use. But anyway, if we can get this through, if we can get enough people to send Trump emails and get this put into place, that would be a very good thing.
I think that's fantastic. And David, I'm going to ask too, we're going to be doing more calls like this down the road. And I mentioned that New Hampshire group. Of course, we do have viewers here that watch our videos all across the country. And I will do my best to try to continue to promote this. And if there's anything I can do, I may also ask if you wouldn't care to send me an email because I've got several things I certainly want to discuss tonight. But yeah, obviously was the last time I remember you and I talked, one of the problems was that there had been no violation at that point in time. And that was before all this quarantine items. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight is exactly how this quarantine situation is being used to violate our rights. And you're exactly right. It goes far beyond the second, which was the primary one we were looking at before. But you're exactly right. I mean, we're seeing our right of assembly to be violated, our freedom of religion being violated. So there's a lot of things that we're seeing being violated and used, or this quarantine measure and this virus measures being used as a tool and as a weapon really against us. So we're going to have a good long show chatting about that, but I really appreciate you calling in and bringing this up. So again, folks, he's asked for you to send the email out. Is there any closing thoughts you want to say, David? I want to give you a chance if there's anything else you want to say.
No, that's about all I had. I'm just trying to reach out and get people, just take 15 minutes of your time, send President Trump an email asking him to direct the Department of Justice to process these complaints, or you're not going to support him in the election. If I can fill his email box with 1 million emails, we can get something done. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of these are Democrats that's been bugging him too, and he would just love to see us put it to them, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I appreciate the call, David. And I see you posted the comment there. So folks, be sure to take a look at it at 18 USC section 242, and let's email the president. Let's do that.
Yeah, it's going to get bad here, guys. We're going to have food shortages worse than what we see now. We have 26 of our Navy ships that are out of commission right now. I think the last briefing I got, there was only 90 out on active patrol right at this moment. And the prime time to hit somebody is when they're down. And, this stuff with China going on, it's kind of worrisome. So it's time for us to stand up and take at least one last stand to do this within the political realm.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll even add, it's interesting because with all this going on, we've never seen times like this I'll speak for myself. I don't know if others have. I can't think of a time in recent American history that's been similar to this. There have been other epidemic situations, but I cannot recall one. And I can't think of one, even from I consider myself a decent study of history. I can't think of another one in history where you've had quite this kind of lockdown, right? I mean, even the flu epidemic of 1918, I know there were some lockdown measures, for instance, around St. Louis that were pretty tight. But my understanding those were basically only for a weekend even. So you mentioned that your state was closed down through the end of May. I know, so you may or may not know this, David, but in Virginia, they've shut it down. Officially, it's still shut down until June 10th. They actually had to move the Republican primaries out because they were scheduled for June 9th. And we think there's a lot of political motivation with the governor choosing the 10th, but they had to bump those out to the 23rd, I believe it was. So I appreciate your call. I appreciate this information. We'll continue to try to get the message out, and we appreciate the call.
Okay. Anything you can do to give me a hand, I should definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely, David.
Much, Scott. Bye-bye.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Great first phone call. I like it. I want to touch on a few points that he did say there before I continue on with some things that have been on my mind here lately. David, you brought up a great point about, food shortages, or, one of the things that quite honestly has me troubled with some of the stimulus packages they're putting out there. First off, the government doesn't print money. It's the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve prints monies, and they regulate a lot of the rates and inflation rates and things that happen with our monetary system. But, one of the things that has me nervous with this money they're giving out, I know it's going to some families that certainly need it, certainly can use it, and I thank God that that's helping them out. But my concern is what is it going to do to the value of a dollar? The money is coming from taxpayers. And if they were to try to spin up the printers and try to print more off, that's going to just greatly increase the inflation rate. And if you're not familiar with what the inflation rate is, basically a historical average you can use as the inflation rate is about 3%. So what that means is if you've got $1 right now, in 1 year, based upon 3% inflation, you don't have $1 anymore. You've got 97 cents. So if right now you can buy a drink for $1 in a year, if you keep that dollar at 3% inflation rate, you'll be 3 cents short to buy that drink. You won't be able to buy it. So and depending on how rates can go, and of course inflation rate doesn't even take into cost or into consideration. Supply and demand. So that drink you may not be able to afford it for even $1. You might be 3 cents short, but based upon, cost and demand and cost fluctuations, that drink may be $1.50 next year. That's one of my concerns. But with all those things, it's interesting to think is when I think about food shortages, one of the things that I would hope maybe a lot of people may come out of this with is the concept of trying to be a little bit more independent, right? A little bit more self-sustaining. That's something even I wish Trump or others would be promoting the idea of saying, listen, guys, and I know this is going to sound silly. This is very, very small little things, but, try to have your own food supply. Try to save up a little bit of a stock. I'm not talking like go all prepper. I'm not talking about building yourself a bunker and, having 10,000 MREs or anything. But, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of canned goods to put back. So that if you lose your job, things can happen that don't even have to be a national crisis, that a food pantry, your own personal food pantry, may serve you very, very well. Canned goods have a good long shelf life. Trying to understand about maybe doing some of the good things that you can do with canning your own things. David, you're exactly right. A year from now, $1 drink will cost you $5. It very well might. But, I'd like, when you think about maybe, we got somebody else calling in here. When you think about maybe what you can do and try to increase your independence through this epidemic. Let's see who's calling in here. This is Jeff. You're on there. Who are we talking to?
Hey, Jeff. It's Wesley, Old School Wolf Media.
Yeah, Wesley, Old School Wolf Media. How you doing there, brother? Good to hear from you.
I'm doing okay. It's been too long.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for calling in.
So sorry to interrupt your good points there.
No problem.
You're going over something that I've been trying to talk to people on my channel about about storing food, having your own, being more resilient.
Yes, sir. Well, and the point. If you don't care, let me just wrap that point up. What I was going to say there was is that, and I'm trying to get up to your comments here because I want to be sure to pull you out here and kind of give you a good shout out. So Old School Wolf Media, we've got Wesley on there. So the comment there is from the Old School Wolf Media. Be sure to check out his channel. Great commentary, some great information. But you know what I was going to mention? I forget, and Wesley, you may know. You may be able to help me with this. I want to say is it Minnesota where they banned the sale of seed?
It's more than one state. I don't think it was actually. I don't think it was actually the governors that were doing it.
Okay.
I think it was just some of the stores poorly implementing it. Some managers of some organizations themselves have gone totalitarian as well.
Okay,
So it's not.
Yeah, and that was
human condition.
Yeah, and that was just the point I was going to make, regardless of where it's coming from. And so, I mean, I hate to throw something out there without understanding the situation fully, but with seeds being kind of maybe in shortage or for whatever reason they're choosing not to sell them, that again just goes to show us all that if we do just a little bit of preparation, so that again, and it doesn't even have to be a national crisis. It could be you just lose your job or a family member passes away and you come upon hard times, whatever it may be. We should all try to be prepared for situations. And so anything you can do to always be prepared is, I think, always good. So, but I'm sure that probably wasn't what you were calling in for there, Wesley. So what's on your mind?
Well, I was curious. What do you think is actually happening on the world stage? Because everybody has their own theory. I want to hear yours.
So, and maybe more specific, I mean, right now the biggest thing across the globe, I think, is the COVID-19, right? And I guess this is what I would throw out there to you. So, it's interesting because this was something I was definitely going to touch on. Now's a good time to touch on it. What's happening here? Is this, people have said, okay, there seems to be, if we go to extremes, and I know I'm going to extremes here, but there's kind of two extremes that I seem to see out here. There's the conspiracy extreme that says, this was created in a lab and it's a virus that was weaponized. It's biowarfare. Maybe it got out of control. Or maybe it's fitting its exact intended purpose. That seems to be one school of thought. The other school of thought is this is completely natural. It snuck up on us. Somebody ate a bat in China and this happened. It's completely 100% natural. And I almost feel like they've maybe seen like too many zombie movies and they just think that if you walk outside, you're going to die. Right. And so this is what I say to people is I say, okay, honestly, with either one of those situations, let's say that, one's 100% right and the other's wrong or vice versa. It doesn't matter with whichever school of thought you believe. What you cannot deny is at the global level, not only in America, but across the entire world, this situation is absolutely, it's serious. I don't want to belittle it. People are dying. I mean, when anybody dies, that's a very serious situation. But regardless, I mean, people die every single day, right? I mean, if the Democrats want to say they're saving lives, they would end abortion, right? Let's just be honest. But what I would say is that regardless of which one of those school of thoughts you come from, the situation is absolutely being used to transform the way that we fundamentally think about our liberties, the way that we operate. It's being weaponized to put further and further divide of the people and divide people, right? Because you got people that fall into those schools of thoughts and they tend to argue over those points. Hey, listen, my life's important and I've got a weakened immune system. And I'm not saying their life is not important, but I'm saying, listen, if you've got a weakened immune system, you can maybe die from the flu too. And this is a virus that we don't know much about. We don't have fixed vaccines for. But I would say that, if I was one of those individuals, if my life had a heightened risk due to a weakened immune system, I mean, I would hope that I would take additional measures myself to protect myself. I mean, theoretically, if there was a worldwide zombie apocalypse, as they think there is, I mean, I could put on the appropriate bodysuit and go out and I wouldn't catch the virus, no matter if people walked up to me and coughed on me, So to me, I mean, I think there's a lot of hysteria with it. I don't want to belittle on either side, no matter what school of thought you're from. I don't want to belittle your points because people are very passionate about both points. But what I would say to folks, no matter what school of thought you're in, is just back up and try to look at the whole thing and just look at how it's being used. Look at how words of our president are being twisted, right? I mean, people are saying he didn't do things early enough But yet we know that in January, whenever he tried to shut down travel bans from China, who were the ones that were telling him? Matter of fact, Pelosi tried to pass laws to make it illegal that he could not do that. Biden said, called it outright and said it was completely a racist thing for him to shut down the borders. Now they're looking back going, man, it's a great thing he shut that down. So does that answer your question, Wes? There's a long answer, but.
No, that's fine. There's a lot to talk about there. I was curious about your view, and I like the view that you take, the stance that you take, because you're telling people to step back and try to take a bigger look at things. Because in my theory, for the past 4 years, we've been witnessing on the global stage a battle between the global elites. Mm-hmm. And this thing is so ginormous that everybody's actually coming up with valid opinions. The problem is they're all looking at one tiny part of the battlefield, not realizing that we're looking at giants.
Right.
These people we're on a battlefield looking at giants, throwing jabs at each other. No matter where they fall, we're going to get hurt. If one falls in the ocean, we die from a tsunami. If one falls on the land, we die from an earthquake. And we kind of just hope they don't fall directly on us. Right. This is a much, much larger thing than what people are trying to focus on. So all the China stuff, that's part of the distraction. I would think that they're kind of possibly victims of the global elites themselves. Look at prior to Trump, these global elites didn't have to take political sides. They existed beyond politics. They bought votes. They bought representatives. They didn't care who you represented or what side you were on, as long as you voted the way they wanted you to vote. But with Trump running as a Republican, the global elites then had to take the Democrat side. So you saw on stage during the debate, Bloomberg admitted that he put 21 Democrats in office.
Yep.
And just think about that for a second. Does he live in 21 districts? I think there's a huge conversation that can be had on the legality of stuff like that. The only reason why Virginia is going through what it's going through right now is because Bloomberg openly, very, very openly dropped money into all those people's pockets, through his Everytown Gun Safety Fund.
Yep.
So he kind of foreshadowed exactly what the leftist agenda is. And the more towards the global elites there. So Bloomberg actually has put money into Republicans before. He just had to put money into Democrats exclusively this time around and admitted on stage, I made sure Nancy Pelosi had the power to impeach Donald Trump. Dude funded the entire thing and thought that he could come in and buy the presidency as well.
Right.
The global elites, things used to be easy with the global elites, and I'm still very tinfoil hat, very theoretical, and this is me stepping as far back as possible trying to look at this. Before Donald Trump, the global elites had a nice, neat pecking order. Didn't matter which one was in charge or who lost power or who gained power. There was still kind of the general plan to be followed. Donald Trump came in, he stole the crown jewel, and they spent 4 years trying to win it back. And even they're throwing everything, even with this COVID thing.
Yep.
Imagine what would happen if Hillary was in charge. We would be the full-blown socialist.
And it's interesting because, I've heard some people, and I just want to throw out there, you talk about Bloomberg controlling it. When I've heard some people make that argument, they've said, well, Trump came out and was boastful about the same thing. And he was to some degree. But the difference is Trump also, he was calling that out for the abuse that it was. He said he took advantage of it because, and I have to say, he's right. He says, if your job is to make money and that's to grow your business, if those things are in place and you can take advantage of them, why would you not do that? That was his point. And his point was to call it out to say, we need to fix that. That shouldn't be that way. We didn't hear that from Bloomberg. Bloomberg was almost bragging that that's what he did and almost saying, hey, let's continue this on. Put me in there and I'll just be able to do it from the front, from the driver's seat instead of from the hiding from behind.
Yeah. And, more to that. It's logically that's correct. So you look at what's going on now with all the people out of work. There's a lot of people that see how horrible this economic policy is, but they're sitting at home. They'd be dumb not to take that $1,200. They can't call up and say, no, don't give that to me. No, you have to take it. That way you're still breaking even with everyone else as opposed to being $1,200 behind.
Yeah, and I've still been waiting to see some of those folks that said "not my president." I'm waiting for their videos of them tearing up that check. So,
but on the flip side, though, a lot of these anti-Trumps and anti-gunners, for the first times in their lives, are realizing there's a reason why we have the Second Amendment.
You're right.
Talking to, you've been seeing in California, you've been seeing gun owners out there posting videos saying, I'm so pissed at these people trying to offer me money to get their gun in advance because that's illegal.
Yep, absolutely.
And even out here in Georgia, I asked people. I actually asked a gun shop guy the other day. I'm like, what's the weirdest situation you've had recently? It's like, you know what? Somebody came in, pointed to that gun, said, I want to buy that one. It's like, okay. Took it out, did the paperwork, exchanged money. Then after he bought the gun, the guy's like, hands it back to me and says, now show me how to use it.
Yeah.
It was $1,000 handgun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So all these people, they're coming around. No matter what they're throwing at Trump, he's figuring out how to work around it. A lot of people are aggravated that Trump has started shutting down the economy. What's going on is he's threading a needle during a snowstorm.
Yeah.
So he has to play all sides at once. This is not an easy thing. I'm not happy with what's going on, but I'm happier he's in the driver's seat than any of his competitors.
Now and I think, to me, anybody that has had their eyes open and again just steps back and objectively looks at it based upon the agendas and their previous history of the way that they've talked about control and liberty and freedom, anybody that loves their freedom, I think would certainly agree with that perspective. Now, people that are ignorant of their history or ignorant of their liberties, or if they just want to just give their power and their freedoms over to the government, they'd probably disagree with you.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's the only ones that would disagree with you.
There's also an ignorance of basic biology these days. So one of the popular things that was floating around the internet was this a text from a hospital worker to a friend saying, I'm going to an emergency meeting at the hospital. Apparently the virus can live on gas pump handles and shopping cart handles. And everybody's freaking out over that. But legitimately, for 20 years now, what do we see when we go to the grocery store? A hand sanitizer booth with wipes for the shopping carts. There's nothing new about this.
Right.
There's literally trillions of viruses in existence right now. And throughout the whole of the scientific community, throughout the entire history of science, we've cataloged less than 1% of active viruses because they're constantly changing. And all these people saying, we need the vaccine. You know what? We have the flu vaccine. It works about 5% of the time, as per CDC studies. Anybody can check that out, cdc.gov. But more often than not, it does not work. And we still have the flu. People still die from it, and actually, astronomically more people live from it than what die from it.
Right.
That's exactly what the stupid coronavirus is going to be. It's a real virus, but there's a giant hoax behind it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, there's a lot of comments here about some of the information that's been coming out the last few days showing that some of the amino acids prove that it was lab produced. And there's some of the chemical components. Again, I'm not up to date on that. I won't speak greatly to that. What I would say to people is, I will admit this much. This is the one thing that I'll lend out there, and I'll leave this thought as far as that's concerned. What was happening in China last year was a huge rebellion, right? We even saw, it was interesting, there were Chinese carrying American flags, singing the national anthem to their communist China rulers. And so, we saw this huge push against the Chinese government. And all I'm going to say is, if you were the Chinese government and if you wanted to suppress that, if you go out there and start bombing and shooting people, which they did to some degree, they shoot them with, they were shooting tear gas and whatever else, they're a communist country, so they can suppress a lot of that news. But in all honesty, and this is on the verge of conspiracy, but what better way to dispel that crowd than to just put some virus out there that you can make them believe, and it does kill people. But to disperse those crowds where you can say, listen, for your own health, we're going to keep you in crowds that are smaller than 10 people or 100 people or whatever it was in China. And of course, in America, we're seeing, less than crowds of 10 people. So the one thing I would say is whether it was man-made or not, I will say that for a good novel, that's exactly what I would do if I was the bad guy. Let's just put it that way.
I see your point there. But I still think China, all the rhetoric on China is part of the distraction.
It can very well be. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, because they shut down their economy too. If this was made in the lab designed to hurt someone, this is it's either a really bad misfire or a really bad round.
Right.
It's kind of a dud when you look at the statistics, and even a lot of the stuff coming out from like Germany, people have actually been following this, and they've started doing immunoglobulin testing. They're like, wait a minute, a lot of the population already had this. They had zero symptoms, or they thought it was the flu and just kept on with their day. It's already been here way longer than what we thought.
Well, and we're seeing. I don't know if you've seen the articles. They've done some tests in Southern California. I know that was the area that I saw, but I believe there's been some more where they were testing for antibodies, and they are indeed finding confirmation that antibodies have been around as early. Matter of fact, in California, the previously earliest case of death was in March. It was in early March, and they went back and they found someone. They did an updated autopsy and found antibodies in the corpse of a person that had passed away. I believe it was either late January or early February. And they said that means that it was around for long before that. So, it definitely was here before measures were being taken. I mean, I think that's now becoming very evident. Again, regardless of how it was made, if it's natural, is it fake, it was here a lot sooner than what we thought. And which that really what that proves is that the death rate is not near as high as they thought it was. I believe the numbers I saw is they thought it was going to have like a 3.5% death rate, and they're down to now with their new estimates. They're thinking it's like a 0.03. Death rate. So yeah. It's interesting. So Wesley, on the flip side, how's your family doing? You all have everything you need? Y'all doing okay during the lockdown here?
We're doing good. Honestly, I was telling everybody, don't panic, stay calm for a while. I wasn't worried about China. I realized this was going to be a hit to our economy, and that's another thing. The United States economy and the Chinese economy, we are tied together. We are joined together at the hip. I mean, if one of us dies, we both die.
Yeah.
If we both die, the entire world falls. So I sincerely doubt China, would intentionally do that to themselves.
Well, and what I would say there too is I would say whether China's doing this or whether China's not. Again, you can argue until you're blue in the face and you're not going to get anywhere. What you got to do is you got to look at it and say, how is it being used? Acknowledge how it's being used, and acknowledge that the solution to that is to get over your bickering about the causes and say, how do we fix this? And we fix this with freedom and knowledge and facts. And, again, the quarantine measures are good as far as if they're voluntary. And I'm going to again talk about that. I don't like forceful quarantine measures. I think recommendations are fine. I think if you can stay home, stay home. But I would say the same thing during flu season, to be completely honest. I mean, it's just always good. If there's some illness going around, try to avoid people if you can. I don't care whether you're going to turn into a zombie or whether you're going to get the flu. Either one of them are bad, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that feedback. That's good. That's good to hear, Wesley.
But me and my family are good. It's been a little. Of course, everybody's getting annoyed having to stay at home all the time. All the parks are closed for no actual good reason.
Yeah.
And you touched on that journey, but. Actually, on my channel, I kind of stopped covering the news and politics because I'm like, it's not getting any better. I recently just did a prepper series because, like you said, we need to figure something out. Well, that's the way I'm figuring it out. I'm not going to focus on all these people saying China has to pay. Not going to work. Not going to work. I'm focused on the possibility of a economic collapse. We need to be ready for that. So you actually touched on it a little about storing food, having a garden. And that is the best way to show the global elite that we will not be controlled. We store some basics on food so we can survive a winter. Because throughout all of history, all of nature, their goal is to survive the winter. Have enough food to survive a winter while logistics get replaced and farms, reevaluate how they work. So it allows people to generate that resilience over a season, and growing food. People don't realize how easy it can be. How many times have you opened your cupboard and saw that the potatoes were growing already?
Right. Absolutely.
Think about it. Potatoes love to grow, and they're less than $3 for 5 pounds at Walmart. You can grab a bag of potatoes and just bury that in your backyard and be happy for a while.
You're right. You may be eating the same thing. You may not be eating McDonald's and Burger King every day, but truth be told, you'll probably be healthier. So it's probably better for you anyways.
Oh yeah. It saved the Irish from a famine, and when the Soviet Union fell, they needed the potatoes to survive. They still, even in Russia today, they still have an annual. I wouldn't call it a holiday, but an annual event where they go out and they harvest potatoes from their community gardens, because that's how they survived starvation.
Yep. Yeah, and people need, and even in urban areas, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because even in urban areas, there are I mean, potatoes, tomatoes. There are things that people can grow even in an apartment building. I mean, quite frankly, a small little planter in your corner, and you can grow some things that can help sustain you. I mean, you may not have a huge crop, but you can get some things that if you can store them and put them away and grow them throughout the year, that can help sustain you through a pretty decent crisis, I would say.
Yes, it just builds up that resilience, and we need to bring back victory gardens.
Absolutely.
Victory gardens.
Yes.
That was during World War I and World War II. It was designed to alleviate the stress on the food chain and the logistics, and allow that food to get overseas to our hardworking men and women fighting overseas. We need to bring back the concept of victory gardens.
I love that idea. And, one of the other growing things nowadays, there's actually even been a trend. I saw it. It was about a year ago I saw this, but I thought it was a great concept for folks that maybe live in a neighborhood that maybe, unable, or it's maybe getting to the point that you don't want to take care of your yard anymore. There's this concept that you can communicate with your neighbors and say, listen, guys, let's have a community garden out of my yard. Right. And that seems a little silly, but I love the community concept of that, of saying, listen, for me, I just can't maintain my yard. So as a community, let's all pitch in. You all don't want to have a garden. You like your nice green grass, whatever. Let's use my yard and let's make a garden. And I saw that was a growing, kind of a growing trend where people had community gardens. So even something like that, I mean, whatever we can do to help one another. Again, our strength is in being united and putting aside our differences and uniting around those common interests that, mean something to all of us. So.
No, that's a great idea. I know in France they do have small gardens in their backyards or front yards, and they exchange throughout the community and talk about what they want to grow. In more populated areas, they have those community gardens because they don't have enough space for it. But what you just said there was actually a great idea. It's a good way to help take care of the elderly. It's a good exchange. The elderly say, I can't really do this. I'm not strong enough to do this anymore. But you guys can have my whole front yard. Just, because you're using our yard, can you please give us some of the bounty?
That's right. That's right.
Wonderful idea. See?
Yep.
Good resilience.
Absolutely.
But I don't want to take up your whole night there.
Well, Wesley, I appreciate you calling in. I'm glad to hear you guys are staying safe and got everything you need. And as always, we'll have future call-ins. Call in anytime, brother.
Appreciate it. Mind if I drop a link?
No, absolutely. No, by all means, guys, please drop the link. And let me, and as a matter of fact, when you put it on there, I'm going to put it up on the screen.
You kicked yourself out of the studio.
I did kick myself out of the studio. Sorry, guys. I hit the wrong button there. I did kick myself out of the studio. We lost several viewers there. We're back. Sorry about that. Yeah, apparently on my Chromebook, I guess I swiped left and it went back. So sorry about that. Sorry, guys. I cut myself out of there for a minute. I'm back. But Wesley from Old School Wolf Media, I will see if I can find that. Mitchell Reese or any of the other moderators that are online, if you guys can go out and post a link to, and I'm going to go back up here and try to put the comments back out here, right here. Old School Wolf Media, guys, check him out. It's a great channel. And as he said, he's got a mixture of different things. He did one, you said your recent video was on kind of some preparedness information. So I love to hear you branching out, and it's a great channel.
Yeah, past few weeks I've just been doing prepping.
Perfect. That's awesome.
What you can do at your fingertips.
That sounds great, Wesley. Yeah, we'll make sure the comments, if the comment does not get on here, if my moderators are off and nobody gets it on there, I'll be sure to get it on there after the fact. We'll definitely put a comment and making sure we have a link to you, okay?
All right. Have a good night.
Appreciate it, Wesley. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Great information. That was a great caller, guys. And I know we had several other comments coming in there, but if any of my moderators are on there, guys, if you can pull up that link to Old School Wolf Media, and let's get that on there. I'm going to try to maybe even just see if I can find that real quick. And so Wesley was talking about, some great points about, again, regardless of really where this is coming from and what it's originating from, we need to understand that there's bigger things at play here. And there's how do I say it? It's a simple matter of saying that we need to be able to unite around our common causes, right? There are bigger things that are bigger issues, as opposed to trying to determine, where it came from or what happened. Let's move past that and try to pull together, work together as a community, and just do what we need to do to make sure that that we help sustain one another. I'm just getting this comment here, pulled up this link. Want to make sure we get this out there. Mitchell Reese beat me to it. Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to hear that, brother. Thank you very much, Brother Reese. So, guys, Mitchell Reese posted that on their Old School Wolf Media. Be sure to check it out. It's a great channel. We did do a group call with him and some others a while back. But I want to get into some of the information I wanted to talk about that was on my heart. So, there's been this comment. There's been a lot of people that have said that, I'm all about rights. I'm all about freedoms. I'm all about liberties. But guys, this is an epidemic. It's a different situation. This is a crisis, right? So we need to think differently. And that comment really, it's something that you may or may not reflect on it a whole lot. I mean, I've never believed that a crisis is a time that you throw your rights out the window. I've never believed that, and I still don't. The more I've reflected on it is I think about our Constitution and our rights, our Bill of Rights. And the realization I come to is, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are really less important during peace and calmness and everything being good. Because whenever there's peace and calmness, people don't tend to try to reach out and power grab, right? Think historically, and I'm talking world history. I'm not talking just U.S. history. I'm talking world history. Think about any time there was a crisis. Anytime there's a natural disaster, anytime there is political unrest, anytime there's a revolt, that is whenever there's a major change in power structure, right? A major change in who's in control. And one of the cornerstones of our entire republic is that the people are in charge and the people have rights. The right of the individual outweighs the wants or even the needs of the majority. If you've got 10 people and they're all hungry and they're all starving, you've got one person that, let's say they all have equal amounts of food. Let's say they're completely equal. They all have the exact same resources, but they know that collectively they've only got enough for 9 people. Now, 9 of those people will probably get together and turn on one. And guys, when you have liberty, that's still wrong. Now, if one chooses to sacrifice himself, that's different. And I think, to be completely honest, in that extreme situation, someone would probably step up and do that. But the point of it is just because there's a crisis doesn't mean that the majority can go throw the rights of the individual out the window. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, is in place especially for a crisis, especially for a bad situation. Freedom doesn't go away just because there's a war. There was a great meme going around, and it was a picture of someone that, and I don't want you guys to take, if you're in these professions, I don't want you to take this literally. It was just making a point, but it had a picture of a nurse, and she said that, it was a meme over top of her was something like, your rights don't mean as much. We're in a crisis. Let me just, I want to find it. I'm not going to ad lib it here. I want to find it. Give me just a second. I'll pull it right back up. Because it was a great meme, and the way it was worded, I think, was absolutely spot on. It'll just take a second to find it here. Again, the meme. Okay, so here it is. It says, "Shut down everything. I'm not willing to risk death just to preserve our way of life." Right, and that's what we're hearing from some people. They're saying, "Listen, you all talk about your way of life and your rights, but my gosh, we need to shut down. I'm not willing. I'm going to die. I might die from this. I'm not willing to risk that for our way of life." And then on the bottom of the meme, it has a picture of a military soldier holding his rifle, apparently going into harm's way. And it just says, "Oh, really?" I mean, guys, that's what our soldiers and our sailors do every day. They risk their lives constantly. They risk death just to preserve our way of life. They don't do it for themselves. They don't do it so that they can, have victory or whatever it may be. And someone's going to say to me that, nurses didn't sign up for that, or people in the medical field didn't sign up for that. They didn't sign up for a pandemic, and I'll admit that. But quite frankly, guys, if people only signed up to do things and have things be going peaceful and great, then that might be, if that's your profession, you might want to reconsider that, right? I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way, but when you think about your career and you think about your life, you need to think about what it is that could potentially face you, right? And how will you deal with that crisis situation? And if you're not comfortable with those crisis situations, you ought to have a plan. And if that plan is to back out and quit your job at that point in time, I have nothing against you. That is your freedom, right? That's what I say about all this. This is supposed to be a free society, a liberty-loving society, and we should all have the right. If I want to quit my job, I should have the right to quit my job. One of the things I've been saying through a lot of this to a lot of different folks, and I see that David put a comment on here. Democrats never let a good crisis go to waste. I would say Democrats, leftists, tyrannical, elected servants, bad people. That's what I would say. Bad people never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's just a fact. So the thing I've told people, I want to throw this out there about this pandemic. This is what I've told people. I've said, guys, if you think about it, because they say to me, well, we should lock down, blah, blah. I say, really, everybody in this situation could maintain their freedom. In a crisis situation, I have no problems. And in fact, I promote the idea of our elected servants promoting the idea of staying at home, wearing a mask, washing your hands. I mean, you should wash your hands all the time. I don't care if we're in a pandemic or not, right? You maybe shouldn't have to wear a mask all the time. Although I'll say, if I personally had a weakened immune system and knew that whatever I had could mean that if I caught the flu or if I caught some unknown virus, that I might die. That's a pretty high risk, right? If death is the risk, that's pretty darn high. Let's be honest, right? It's not like you're just going to be in the hospital for a week. You might die, right? That's the end of it. That's kind of the end. That means you're going home, either to heaven or to hell, one or the other. If that was me, I might be inclined to wear a mask all the time because I don't want to be the one that discovers COVID-19, the next COVID-19 or whatever it may be, right? I'm not going to put my faith in rainbow and unicorn land and just walk around completely unprotected thinking that it's never going to happen to me. If I have that heightened of a risk, I want to have something to keep me a little bit more protected. So that's what I would say to those folks. I would say if you're at a position, and I'm not belittling you, I'm not saying, it is unfortunate. If you have a weakened immune system, it's absolutely unfortunate. Guys, there are human beings that are born with no legs. It's unfortunate. They make their life. There are people that are born quadriplegics. It's unfortunate, but they live a life, okay? You are dealt the cards that you'd have, and I have been very, very, God has blessed me. I just want to be honest, right? I've had hardships in my life, don't get me wrong, and I'm not here to talk about those. But the point of it is you have an opportunity with the cards that you're dealt to make the most of it. And, the person that's going to stop you, the person most in control in America, in a free society, the person most empowered to control your destiny and to stop you is you. You are most in control of that. Now, it doesn't mean you can go out here and grow wings before someone starts going to extremes, but if you suffer a blow and you're born, without legs, you can sit around and you can sulk all day, or you can try to make the most of it, right? If that's your tragedy, you do the most with it, right? And to me, I would always say you give God the glory, right? If you lose a loved one young in life, if you suffer from PTSD from maybe military service or some other first responder services, that's just the unfortunate hand that's been handed to you, and you make the most of it, is what I would say to you. Anyways, again, freedom does not go away just because of a crisis. Dustin, it's great to see you. It doesn't go away just because of a crisis. Now, there is one thing I do want to share, and I'm going to share my screen here just real briefly. Give me just a minute here. Let's share the screen. I want to highlight a video because I'm going to talk about one of the things that happened in this video. So if you're on Amazon, you can watch this video. It's called Targeted: Exposing the Gun Control Agenda. Now, I've been watching several series. I've actually posted several comments about some of the videos I've seen on here. It's an hour and 7 minute long video. Came out in 2016. There was another great one that came out. There was a gentleman. We got a call coming in. I'm gonna get it here just in a second. But there was a gentleman that had never had a firearm and went through that whole process, but targeted. Let's come back to this after this caller. I want to talk more about this, but I do want to get the caller. So let's see who we got online. This is Jeff. Who are we talking to?
Hey, Jeff, this is Travis. How are you?
Good, Travis. How you doing, man? It's good to hear from you.
I'm tired and wore out, buddy.
Tired and wore out. How you handling up through all the quarantine situation?
Well, that's what I was going to talk to you tonight about. As you know, we dealt with it over here in my county firsthand, and my department has dealt with it. Up close and personal. Now we've transported quite a few patients. With COVID-19 since it's hit our area. I will give thanks to the good Lord above that our PPE that we do have has been very good at protecting us. And you hit on a lot of points there that when we were talking about going out into the community, one of the things that I have noticed, I've been doing this career-wise, fire and EMS. I've worked for the federal government. I've worked for a large municipality in the fire and EMS field. And, it's amazing because, us as medical providers, not just in the fire and EMS field, but the hospital staff, if people would get educated and just listen and do what they should be doing about good hygiene, washing your hands, covering your mouth, with a mask. When you go out in public, a lot of this will come to an end, and I'll tell you why. There's been a lot of agencies that didn't know that they were transporting a COVID-19 patient. That, yes, they had a mask on and they had gloves and just normal PPE, and they'd come out fine after the patient tested later because the agencies are trained in, protecting themselves. But it's amazing that a lot of the medical professionals, firefighters, paramedics, nurses, doctors, how they're being treated out in public by the public itself. We're being treated as that we're infected with this virus, but I would rather take my chances being around a group full of nurses, doctors, firefighters, paramedics as I would the public.
Absolutely.
So, that's just a lot of the issues we're running into. I mean, I've seen this virus up close and personal within 2 feet, transporting patients. A lot of our EMS agencies have. But, yes, it's deadly. The flu's deadly. Pneumonia's deadly.
Yep.
But, like the last guy just said a minute ago, our economy, we got to be prepared as individuals. And I keep telling people all the time, stock up on food, stock up on ammunition, not just protect your house, but, you maybe have to go hunting,
Yeah.
So, you may have to go that route. So, I cannot stress enough to individuals, if everybody's listening out there tonight, because I'm in contact with people all across this nation every day. And I know where our shortages are at. I know when they're coming. I know we have a lot of meat processing plants that are, shutting down.
Yep.
We have a lot of food processing plants that's going to be closing due to this virus. And if they think toilet paper was a problem, you wait and see when there's no food, in the canned good aisles, or there's no meat.
Yep.
So,
well, and that highlights a point for some of our urban brothers and sisters, who maybe, a couple months ago weren't understanding that Second Amendment argument. They now understand that, at least in rural areas, we're fortunate to be able to go out and we can hunt to provide some basic necessities, some basic sustenance to maintain our family. I mean, it may not be, the spread meal that you'd have for Thanksgiving, but, a deer can go a long ways to feeding a family. So I'm glad you bring that up. One thing, Travis, if you don't care, to your point about being around folks, one thing I want to point out, something I've noticed recently, unfortunately going through some drive-thrus, because we've taken a break from some of my, home ham and cheese sandwiches and stuff. And we went out and got fast food a couple times. And it's troubled me to see just earlier today, I'm not going to say where it was at, but there was someone working the fast food window, and they had the mask. Not only did they not have it over their nose, they had it down so far that when they talked, their mouth went above it, And I thought it almost looked like one of those guys in like the deli that sometimes just cover their beard, This was a female, so I'm assuming she didn't have a beard. But the one thing I would say is to anybody out here, guys, when you wear a mask, and Travis, I'll let you elaborate, but I'm going to let you actually say this, but I know it's supposed to cover your nose and your mouth, correct?
that is correct.
And and I know some of them have the metal bendy strips, and you're supposed to bend that and form that around your mouth. And I understand that even, a virus can transfer through many different things. So even your eyes, if you really want to be honest about it, even maybe if you have a very, very weakened immune system, you might even want to go out with some sort of a face cover. Would that make sense, Travis?
Yeah, and this virus, it's a new virus. Coronavirus has been around for years, but COVID-19 is something that's new.
Right.
And we don't know what, I guess, stages this virus is taking. We don't know if it's mutating into something stronger, because a lot of people were sick in around late November, early December, and January.
Right.
I was one of them.
Right.
I was very weak. I was very fatigued. I had a fever for 2 weeks. I tested negative for flu A and flu B. I was no pneumonia, no strep, but I kept this bug, just don't know what it was.
Yep.
So a lot of my firefighters had the same exact symptoms. And, are we saying that we've possibly had coronavirus back in that time? They're looking at it and said, yes, it's possible. But one of the things, Jeff, I can tell you right now, what I've seen with this virus, it does hit people, especially like diabetics, people that are diabetics that have underlying health conditions. It really hits hard.
Absolutely.
And it does get elderly hard. And I'll tell you what, with children, the kids may just have a sniffle, and you not even know they have it. And a lot of people are asymptomatic with this and don't even know they have it, and they're spreading it. So, I go into grocery stores and I see children still gnawing on the handles of the buggies. I see them still putting their hands in their mouth. I still see people talking face to face. And one of the big things, and I applaud people that put masks on and wear gloves, but one of the things that's really getting them in trouble is their cell phones and cross-contamination and not watching what they're doing.
Well, it just goes to show, something as simple as washing your hands goes a long ways. But the one thing I would also add there is, I know we have a lot of folks. There are folks out there that think people are overreacting, right? And think that the government's overreacting. And I'll actually be the first to say I think the government is going to an extreme that I think is too far. But what I want to say, the point I'm trying to make there is, as just stewards of a good community, when I go out, keep your distance from people. Even if you disagree, guys, if there's someone in front of you, they may have an autoimmune system, or they may be elderly, or whatever it may be. Just be respectful. It doesn't make that big. It's not that hard of a thing to give space. If you don't want to wear a mask, you are accepting the risk, and you are potentially risking others. Be very clear that that's something you have to accept and understand. But, there are simple things like just keeping your distance, coughing in your elbow. If you have to cough, don't cough on your hands. If you, by any means, if you are sick, if you do show any symptoms, don't go out if you can at all help it, right? So I think there's just little things that we can all do. It's just, not only is it basic hygiene, but it's just also just some decent respect for other humans.
Yeah, that's correct. And, when you were talking a minute ago about the economy and stuff, a lot of people are arguing back and forth, and they say, well, we need to keep everything closed, and other people are saying we need to open. Listen, we're going to have to come to a happy medium somewhere, because, I made a post today on my Facebook page, and it was something that was, I was thinking, because of things I am seeing and the conference calls I'm involved with the local and state governments. Listen, I cannot stress this enough. People better be prepared.
Right.
This is not over. It's not even close to being over. And, prep. Yep. Grow a garden, have plenty of ammunition to protect your home, protect your family, to go hunting. Make sure you have your fishing poles, your lures, all that stuff. Catch fish. Be ready and be prepared, because, the CDC already came out that this virus is liable to be much worse come wintertime this year.
Right.
They're saying it could be much worse. But, Jeff, we got to look at it. How much more can our country take?
That's right.
How much more can we be shut down?
Right.
And I do not think the people that want to keep everything closed understand that, because eventually those food sources are going to run out.
Yeah, well, at a very high level, I made a post earlier today, and I said, at the end of the day, what we're looking at here, first off, I want to say it's not that I disagree with almost any of the measures that are being recommended. Okay, I think everything being recommended is great. If you can stay home, stay home. If you can wear a mask, wear a mask. If you can, all the different measures that are if they're recommended, that's fine. What I don't like is the fact that they're being enforced to the point that people are going to jail or getting fines. Because I say this is the precedent that you're setting. You set a precedent moving forward, and this is the question. These are the two. This is the question I pose to people is you've got one of two scenarios. When you think about your children and your grandchildren, and one day, everybody faces risks every day. When you get in a car and drive to work, you're taking a risk, right? And the question I say is for your children and your grandchildren, when they in their life are confronted with risks, do you want them to have the freedom and the liberty to make the choice about how to mitigate that risk for themselves and the people around them to the best of their ability freely? Or the B option is, do you want someone that's way off somewhere and maybe doesn't even know who your children are, and they may not even care about your children's livelihood or their well-being, for them to tell them what mitigation risks they have to take and that they may go to jail or suffer fines or whatever else if they don't do what they're being told, right? And that's where I have the problem. To me, I think the liberty to make the choice, and even though your choice could risk others, and I would even go as far as to say if you knowingly spread something, I mean, it's like HIV, right? If you knowingly spread HIV to somebody, you should be held accountable, right? If you can show that there was culpability there and you knew what was happening, that's accountability. That's no different than grabbing a firearm and going and shooting somebody, right?
Correct.
So I tell people, that we can go about this with preserving liberties and preserving freedoms. And again, if I'm one of those people that have that autoimmune system, and this sounds extreme, but let's say I have a job and I signed up to that job when everything was good and there were no epidemics. And then all of a sudden, there's an epidemic. I mean, even though it sounds extreme, I have the right to quit my job if I want to, right? If I no longer want to accept that risk, I can quit.
And, that's one of the things when my career, just like everybody else, I take this chance every time I go out.
Absolutely.
I might not come back or I may catch something. That's something I signed up for. Just like people that signed up for the military, they know what the military does. They know it protects our country, protects the people. So, in my position, I don't look for, the 10% discount, the 30% discounts on food because you're first responder. No, I signed up for that job.
Right.
I took that oath to protect the people. So, no, I always say, no, I'm paying full price because that's my job. I signed up to do it. I took an oath to protect the people, so that's the way it's going to be. So, I don't know, man. I just think we're in some troubled times right now, and I think it's just going to get much worse. Well,
Travis, I appreciate your calling. I appreciate your service. We will certainly be praying for you and all other first responders and all those on the front line are certainly we always pray for our military folks. But, you're right. Right now, we always think of our military folks, but we've got a different set of folks that are facing real risks. And you face them on a day-to-day basis. They just may not be as visible, but this COVID-19 situation has certainly brought that to light. So we appreciate your service, brother.
All right, man. I'll write you later.
Take care, brother. God bless.
All right,
So Brother Anderson, he's from the neighboring county. He's a first responder, and it's glad to have him calling. So Travis, I appreciate you calling in. There's one other bit of the thing that I want to touch on, and I was talking about the video a moment ago, and I'm just going to pull this back up for our viewers to make sure you know where I'm talking about. So this on Amazon, if you have the opportunity, targeted exposing the gun control agenda, and although the video truly is, and the movie is about, the firearm situation, the Second Amendment, and what's being violated there for our rights as a Second Amendment, but there's one thing that's touched upon in the video that really spans all of our rights. Okay. When we talk about tyranny and what is tyranny, that doesn't just apply to the Second Amendment. Okay. If people are infringing upon your Second Amendment rights, that's tyranny. If they're infringing upon your First Amendment rights, your 10th Amendment rights, your 6th Amendment rights, whatever amendment it is, that's tyranny. Okay. And I want to talk about what is tyranny. That's an interesting concept. What does it mean if we call someone a tyrant? And I really like in Targeted, they talked about a Dr. Joe Morecraft. Dr. Joe Morecraft is an individual. He's a preacher. He's an ordained minister in the Protestant faith, I do believe it is. He's outside the Atlanta area. He actually got one of his degrees from a local university here in Bristol, King University. I had heard about Dr. Joe Morecraft, but there was an interesting point that he brought up. and it reminded me of some of my very, very old early lessons in American history that I had kind of forgotten about. So I was really glad that he brought this up. But I've been studying a little bit more about it. So when someone asks you, what is tyranny? You have, obviously we can sit here and say it's infringing on our rights. It's a violation of a commitment. But what exactly is that? And what did it mean to our founding fathers? And Joe highlights this. And by the way, Joe is also recognized not only as an ordained minister, he has several credentials around being a historical scholar. He is world renowned. He has several articles. He is certainly a well-enlightened individual when it comes to the founding of America and particularly that history period. So he mentions an individual that you all, I'm sure most of you have heard about it. If you remember or not, may not be, but John Knox, and part of the Reformation period, he was a huge influence on the political views around the time of the Revolution, around the 1770s, and particularly for our forefathers. So, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, they were all very well-educated individuals, and they were all, it's evident, and it's even spoken about directly by some of them in a lot of their personal writings and their memoirs, and the influence that John Knox had on their political views. Now, John Knox believed in what's referred to as a covenantal politics. Covenantal politics, a covenant is basically where people take vows, right? A covenant, you could almost say marriage is a covenant. It's a vow between people, right? And there's four pillars that John Knox talks about when it comes to covenantal politics. I want to make sure I highlight these right. The first one is a vow by the civil magistrate to God. Okay, it's a covenant that the civil magistrate makes to God that he will essentially apply the laws according to God's will and according to God's desires. Okay, and according to God's rules. Okay, he makes sure that what he's going to do while he's in an elected power is in alignment with what God wants for the people. That's the first vow. The second vow is from the civil magistrate again to the people that he will protect the people. But the key again is according to God's law. Okay, in alignment with God's law and God's rules. Okay, that's the second vow. That's the second pillar. The third pillar is from the people to the magistrate, that they will follow and they will abide by the rules of the magistrate. And here's the key: as long as the magistrate keeps their vows. So it's a little bit different than a marriage because it's not a vow in the sense where it's like a contract. There is sort of a contractual agreement here, right? It says we will follow you as long as you keep your vows to us. That basically says this aligns with God, okay? And then the last one is from the people to God, that the people will remain faithful to God. So it's the four pillars of covenantal politics. And so if you ask yourself, what does it mean to violate that? And so there, people can be tyrants, right? Let's be honest. If the people don't listen to the magistrate, even though the magistrate is aligning with God, then the people are being tyrannical. I want to be clear, right? If these vows are being broken by anybody keeping those vows, that's the tyrant. If the people are saying, as it talks about in the fourth pillar, that they're supposed to be faithful to God, if they break that faith, then they're being tyrannical, right? But the key one is, that, if you think about the people will remain faithful to the magistrate as long as they keep their vows. That's key, as long as they keep their vows. Because let's think about let's just think about the Second Amendment, right? It's written about in the Bible. We've talked about it on previous videos here, that this concept that you have the right to self-defense, right? And if the civil magistrates basically, it was like the civil leaders. It's like your legislators, right? It's in the modern day, it would be your judges, it would be your senators, your congressmen, et cetera, the president, your governor. They would all essentially be what the equivalent of a magistrate was. Magistrates were typically more at a lower level, but we can think of them as essentially our elected servants. Okay, magistrates were typically elected as well. In some societies they weren't, but just to be clear. But when those magistrates violate their commitment to God, their vow to God that they'll align with God's laws, they become tyrants. And so I've said this in the very beginning. I've never thought about it in this context, but I've said that, if you don't support the Second Amendment, then you don't support God. And I've never thought about it from the covenantal perspective here, but it's very, very true. If our elected servants are going to try to take away our Second Amendment right, then they're not keeping in alignment with God's laws. Therefore, they become tyrannical by definition, as our founding fathers understood covenantal politics. Okay. Let's be very, very clear. Even George Washington, he was the one that started the whole concept of taking your oath on a Bible. And so that's part of that traditional thought of taking a vow to God as a civil servant. So tyranny is essentially defined when any of those four pillars are being violated. Okay. And what we're seeing right now with this COVID-19 situation is, I really believe we are seeing instances. Well, we saw it already where they've shut down gun stores. They shut down firing ranges at first. There's now some politics involved where they're reopening fire ranges. Guys, it's not just the Second Amendment. We can look at abortion. We can see about how that violates that child's right to life in the womb. Are there certain exception cases where the mother's life is at risk and a decision has to be made? Guys, that is in any medical procedure where two individuals are involved. Let's think about conjoined twins, right? They may have to make a decision about which one they're going to focus on as they're trying to maybe separate conjoined twins. That's not, that doesn't go away. That's always been there, right? We're talking about the most normal routine case, right? And abortion is a violation of life. We can think about what's happened with this epidemic. We've seen it now in Mississippi and some other states where essentially church gathering groups, there was one where people were gathering in their car. The sermon was, or the service was being broadcast through FM, through people's radios. And the police were going around giving people a fine in their car, a $500 fine, just for being there. Now, there might have been 200 cars in the parking lot, right? But for those people, they were within their family unit, within their car. If they were all at home listening across FM, what would be the difference? They were equally quarantined, if you want to call it that, within their own family unit, right? And that was all. I believe it was in the state of Kentucky. I believe there was a mayor that was specifically talked about for Easter, that if there was anybody caught going to a drive-in church service, that they were going to give out fines. Now, that particular one was ruled out and overthrown by a federal judge that called it exactly what it was. He said it was unconstitutional. What I would say, guys, in my opinion, with this entire thing, I would say that a church does not need to meet in person if they can help it, right? Now that's very, very difficult because there are some folks that don't understand technologies. There are people that don't have the internet, right? Guys, there are still people that don't have power in their home, right? I know we live in a modern world, but by choice or by non-choice, there are people that don't have power within their homes. So, for a lot of folks, church is their only opportunity for social interaction. In fact, here a couple of weeks ago, I had an interesting debate online. Someone was saying, well, church is not necessary to your health, right? It's not like going and buying food. And I said, listen, we've talked about this modern day mental crisis, mental health issues. There are some people that church, and when I say church, I don't mean the body of the people, because that is the church, but I am talking about the physical attendance of going to a house of God and worshiping together with the church family. That is the only social interaction for some people. And that gives them mental stability and mental health. And not only that, guys, but listen, as Christians, we rely on our faith. Now, that's to a non-Christian, that doesn't make sense. And to someone that doesn't believe in that, I understand that doesn't, you say that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, guys, at the end of the day, you can absolutely find cases. They can't explain it scientifically, but they can find cases where there have been seemingly miraculous healings based upon people's, if you want to call it, their faith. Now, is there an underlying scientific explanation? I'll say this much. There is, but I think it's no less miraculous. God is supernatural. God is outside the natural world. By definition, supernatural means outside of nature, right? But he moved forward this machine of nature to work together. So he can work in there supernaturally from outside using natural components to make things happen. Now, he can also inject supernaturally and make things that are against science and that can't be defined by science or explained by science, and I believe that absolutely happens. But I just want to be clear that faith is incredibly important to Christians. That unity of being with other people is incredibly important. So don't undermine what's important to someone else may not be important to me. But who am I to say what's important for me and not for that person? What I would say is that during this epidemic situation, if people want to accept that risk and their church has accepted that risk, that they're going to maybe open the church up and let people come in and sit 10 feet apart in family groups. I would really try to encourage them to try to find an alternative that would work better for everybody. Maybe an FM broadcast in their parking lot, whatever it may be. But what I would say is that there are options that people could be taking that still align with freedom. Okay. Again, if you're one of those folks that have a heightened risk immune system, take additional PPE measurements. Wear a face mask. I mean, guys, excuse me. You can order a full body suit. That does it's going to do a pretty good job of protecting you. I mean, it'd probably be hard to get a hazmat suit now, but I mean, I'm sure during times if you really wanted to fork up the money for it, you could get it. So I would say that we should our freedoms do not go out the window when a crisis comes on board. And I think this is probably maybe a good time to start wrapping this up. There's a lot of other things that we can talk about. We talked about some of them on the callers, but to kind of take us back where we started, guys, freedoms don't go out the window during a crisis. Just because there's a crisis does not mean that your rights can be violated. It just doesn't work that way. In fact, I would say that your rights you need to be more outspoken about protecting your rights during a crisis situation, because that's when they're most likely going to be at risk. So the whole point of tonight, I see some folks here. So Delenn's coming in here on YouTube commenting, I'm at high risk. I still am working because I'm essential. I'm doing everything I can, and I'm still scared being out. Absolutely, Delenn. That's exactly right. And so God bless you and thank you for your service, right? Like Travis earlier, he said he didn't just sign up for the easy times. And Delenn, I'm sure you're the same way. You've got some folks, some patients that I know are very, very special to you. And so, I would say that, something else, I just want to throw this out there too, since we're talking about freedoms and what we can do. Let's throw this out there. It was interesting. It's interesting. It's been a few days ago since I looked at the numbers. So I'm sure the numbers are slightly different now, and they'll probably continue to change. But I was comparing the number of infected people in the United States versus the unemployment rate in the United States, right? And at the time, the ratio was for every one person that has just been infected, not died, not even been hospitalized. Now, it was recorded, right? So we sure, as we test more, we're going to find more cases. I'm not disputing that fact. But at the time, by the numbers, for every one person that had been infected, there had been 36 people that had lost their job, right? And I said, you know what? Let's just cut the unemployment rate even in half. Let's say that only half of the job loss is due to this. That means for every one person that's been infected, 18 people have lost their jobs. Now, granted, no doubt, death is certainly worse than just losing a job. Let's be very honest. But can you say that just having the virus is as impactful as losing your job? I don't know that I would argue that. I don't know that I could argue that, right? Because we know that a lot of people have this and they're completely asymptomatic, right? So I guess what I'm saying is it's interesting that right now we're choosing that the one person is more important than those 18. There are people that are losing their job. They're losing their careers. They're losing their livelihood. Their businesses are being shut down. They will never recover. There are some people now, the 18, maybe that's only 6 people that will never recover. The other 12 people, they're going to figure something out and they'll get back to the job as soon as things get going. That may be the case. That's still saying that one person is more important than 6. Now, this could grow and eventually we could see the numbers change. I recognize that's a possibility. I understand how statistics work and I know things can change. But I will say the unemployment's went up by another 2 million, I believe I saw. I believe there's now 24 million people unemployed was the most recent number. But the number of cases have not grown to the millions yet in the United States. So I still think it's something to consider. As Travis was mentioning, at what point do we look at it and say, guys, we're going to die from this epidemic, but not from the epidemic, right? At the end of the day, people losing their jobs, guys, that hurts their mental stability. We know we see suicide rates go up. I mean, that might be part of the Democrats' plan if this is being planned, right? If we want to go kind of conspiracy on it, right? Because if suicide rates go up, that can help figures that make them sell other propaganda points, right? Now, I'm just literally throwing that out there, just made that up off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, the point of it is losing a job is not insignificant. It's very significant to people, and that has an impact on people's lives in the same way that a true deathly illness can. Not true if it comes to the point of death, but to some degree, maybe it is sort of analogous, right? I mean, if someone has a very, very low or maybe has mental health issues and they lose their job and they choose to take their life, well, that's a life lost, right? Because they lost their job. Maybe they may have never had the virus. So at some point in time, we've got to start understanding that we've got to make sure that we take care of and make sure we have a sustainable recovery platform. We've seen all kinds of comments. If you guys have been following the comments tonight, and guys, we welcome the comments. I'm glad to see them. You know, is in 1 year now $1 only going to be worth 5 cents, right? A drink that you pay $1 for now, is it going to cost you $5 in a year? I don't know, right? I'll be the first to tell you guys, I don't know if I've said this before, but I'm not a scare tactics guy, right? I don't want to come at you with doom and gloom. But what I will say, inflation's real. If everybody has money, then money's going to be worth a little bit less, right? Things aren't worth a lot when everybody has it. That's supply and demand. That's just basic supply and demand. The more money that they print up, if it comes down to that, the higher the inflation rate's going to be. The higher your rates are going to go. Your mortgage rates are going to go up. Your loan rates are going to go up. Your car loans are going to go up, right? So at the end of the day, I think we have to be mindful that our freedoms are something that don't go out the window just because there's a crisis. At the end of the day, our freedoms are worth fighting for. There are risks. Let me make this point too. Freedom is not free. Freedom is not safe. Okay? Freedom is incredibly dangerous. It can be. In fact, it usually is, right? When people have full control, like in a prison, things can be controlled. And for the people in there, they may not be great. They don't get the liberty to go do what they want to do or be where they want to be, but they're pretty safe. They got health care. They got food. It's all provided for them. They got a shelter. It's all given to them, right? Now, there can be fights that break out, but then someone comes in and calms it and breaks it down. But you've got this ruler, this commander, this warden that's telling you exactly what's going on, okay? So understand that freedom is a dangerous thing. And the question I would pose to you is the age-old question, and I know some of the people are going to say it's taken out of context. I know the quote is used out of context, but I still think it applies. Do you prefer dangerous freedom or peaceful slavery? Okay? Now, I'm greatly simplifying the reality of how that works. But in essence, if we are being told what we can do and what we can't do and how we can do something, then to some degree we are heading down a path of dictatorship, which eventually leads to a sense of slavery. Okay. Now I'm not, and the term may be extreme. Someone called me out and said, "Oh, how can you use the term?" Listen, I'm not trying to make an analogy back to the days of the before the cotton gin and things along those lines. Be reasonable here. Work with me, okay? The question is, do you prefer a society where we can choose what risks we accept and how we want to mitigate those risks, or do you want someone 1,000 miles away, or even just 20 miles away, or even next door, telling you, "Hey, Jeff, you've got a fire in your house, and the only thing you can use to put it out is your water hose. You can't call the fire department. I'm sorry, that's no longer an option to you," right? Or do you want to be able to have the freedom to say, "I'm going to call on whoever I can to come help me put this fire out," right? You might make mistakes with that freedom. You might make the wrong choice occasionally, but you're accountable. It's your choice. It's your freedom, okay? Sassafras says, freedom requires vigilance at every level. I love that word, vigilance. And it's important to be vigilant for our freedoms. That means we constantly go at it. Anakai the One says freedom is not a gift, it is earned. And gaining it is the easy part. Keeping it is the hard part. I'll agree. Part of our freedom is what we're doing right here. We're speaking out. I've told you guys many, many times, I never had the desire to make a YouTube channel, come out here and do all this stuff, or try to take up time away from my family to come do these things. But this is part of the price that I'm accepting to do, right? Help you guys get the word out there. You guys help me get the word out there. This is your all's channel, right? Let's get the word out there. You've got to be willing to go talk. There's people that have said in the past that they don't want to speak up because they don't want to offend somebody. And that's somewhat reasonable. I can understand that. I was there. I don't like conflict. I don't just try to go out and make conflict. But what you have to ask yourself, are you willing to trade that at the risk that maybe your children aren't going to have less of a free country, right? If someone's coming in and saying, you're really going to offend me if you tell me that you have to have your freedoms, right? You have to explain to me because I think it shouldn't be that way, right? Are you worried about offending that person more so than you are about preserving freedom for your children? Because that's a choice that you make if you stay silent. I want to be honest. Okay? You've got to be willing to speak up and say that enough is enough. And let's have a conversation. You don't have to be mean about it, but let me be very clear. In fact, you should do it with charity. I've talked about that on this channel, right? Corinthians talks about charity. It's one of my favorite books in the Bible, Corinthians. We should do things with charity and with love, right? When you have that conversation and someone comes to you, you shouldn't have a gun, right? Well, let's have a talk. Why are you telling me what I can do when I'm not going to tell you what you can do, right? I mean, if you don't want to have a firearm, you don't have to have one, right? I'm just saying, let me have my choice, right? Someone comes to you and says, you shouldn't be allowed to go in public if you have the common cold. Because that's basically what they're kind of saying with this quarantine situation, right? The cold's going around, so you're not allowed to go out in public. The flu's going around. You're not allowed to go out in public, right? You might spread it to somebody else. I made the analogy. I said, if I've got a neighbor that has a weakened immune system and maybe they have a bad allergic reactions in the spring, right? Allergies is just terrible for them. And with their weakened immune system, they might potentially die from allergies. Does that mean I can't mow my yard? Does that mean that they have the right to tell me not to mow my yard? Now, if I'm a good neighbor, I might try to work out a schedule with them. Be like, listen, what days are you going to be at the doctor's, and what days are you going to be not going to be going outside? Let's work together, and I'll try to mow my yard and minimize this allergic reaction for you. That's a good neighbor. But guys, there's no law that says I have to be a nice person. I should be, and I promote that idea. But I want to be clear. You can't be told that you have to be a nice person. That's a freedom. You can be a jerk. I hate to say it. That's freedom. That's part of the dangerous freedom that we live in. Okay? My neighbor should not be able to tell me what I can do. Where do rights end? Right? To me, what is a right? Your rights, first off, they're God-given. Okay? Services can't be rights. People want to say healthcare is a right. You can't enslave somebody to provide services so that you have your right. And if healthcare becomes a right, that's exactly what you do. You're saying a service is a right. And that means that someone would have to be enslaved to provide it to you. That's why services can't be rights. People try to make analogies all the time to utility workers, or I think I've heard, police officers, other things. No, guys, that's different. That's not a right. That's different. Okay, there's a big difference. Those are all public utilities. They're all privileges when it comes to being on the road. That's not a right. Rights at the first rights we had in our Constitution were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Period. That was it. That was basically those. That was those things. Those were the main ones we called out. The Bill of Rights didn't come out until a couple years later. That's when things like freedom of speech, Second Amendment, et cetera, all those got put in there later on, okay? The Bill of Rights does not cite healthcare. That's exactly right, Sassafras. And people forget about that fact, right? I mean, our Constitution came out, and the Bill of Rights was a little bit after that. People forget about that fact. So basically what that means, by the way, the Bill of Rights does not give us our rights. The Bill of Rights does not tell us what we're limited to do. The Bill of Rights tells the government what they're limited to do on our liberty, on our rights. Okay, so when it was just a Constitution, you had the right to whatever arms you wanted and however you wanted to do it. It wasn't until the Bill of Rights came out that started to sort of, limit and say that this is how this can be done, right? And really, they didn't limit it at all. In fact, they just kind of said, they just called it out plainly, because originally it was life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Later on, they just kind of delineated those things. They wanted to make sure they were called out. And thank God they did, because, man, if they hadn't, it'd be even more of a madhouse. But anyways, guys, we've been going for an hour and a half. I had no idea how long I was going to be going tonight. We've been going for an hour and 38 minutes. The Bill of Rights was written to limit the government's authority. Absolutely, Anakai. It has been a while since we've heard you. Anakai, it's great to have you back, guys. Brandon, Mark Rouse, brother, it's great to have you in the house, brother. Great to see you. Guys, listen, it's been a great night. I've enjoyed it. We've had some good phone calls, good call-ins. We didn't get any what's the word I'm looking for here? We didn't get any of our Southern California folks that call in that are crazy. No offense to the folks in Southern California, our good brothers and sisters out there, but we didn't have any. I just can't think of the term. Our folks that are the people, the crazies out there. We didn't get the crazies calling in, right? So, folks, again, I just want to throw out there, Brother Reese, I'm glad you posted another comment to Mark Rouse. Guys, absolutely, I'm going to put this up here real quick. Brother Mark Rouse, check out his channel. Mitchell Reese, thank you for posting that on there. Guys, I've really enjoyed tonight. It's been a great conversation. Again, we had some great call-ins. No trolls. That was the word I was looking for. No trolls called in tonight. Anakai, thanks for having the heathen in your show. Scott County VA Gun Owners. We all one big family after all. We are all one big family. We are all one family of God, guys. We are all united as a family of God. And as I always try to do, I do want to close with a verse of Scripture. I thought tonight I was trying to think of some other verses of Scripture, but I'm going back to one of my favorite ones. I referred to it on here before. It's an easy one, but I think that during this epidemic, it means a lot. And it's the center of the Bible, Psalm 118, verse 8. It is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. If someone walks through here and shoots me in a few minutes, then that's God's will. If this virus takes me out, then that's God's will. If an asteroid comes down and hits me, that's God's will. If I die driving on the way home, that's God's will. Okay? I can tell you, I'm not going to put, as the video, there's a great video going around of Reverend Billy. Oh my gosh, this is absolutely embarrassing. I can't think of his name. My mind's blank. Obviously, I should have shut down before. Billy Graham. I'm trying to go through here and find it. Billy Graham, he's basically saying that there is nothing else that I'm going to put my faith in. I'm not going to put my faith in governments. I'm not going to put my faith in Scott County, Virginia gun owners. I'm not going to put my faith in money. I'm not going to put it in my job. God is in control. He was in control when time started. He's in control now. And I'm not coming here to preach to you guys, but our trust should be in him and him alone. It shouldn't be in anything else. It shouldn't be in other countries. It shouldn't be in other governments. It shouldn't be in the United Nations. Psalm 118:8 says it is better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. Folks, tonight, take away one thing. Take away one thing from here. If your confidence is in man, change. Give up the confidence in man. You're going to fall. It will absolutely fail you if your confidence is in man. And I'm not saying there's not good people that you can't trust. There certainly are in this world. And consider yourself very blessed if you're fortunate to know someone that you can trust. But keep your confidence and your faith in God. Don't let that ever fade away. Okay? Guys, don't ever let that fade away. Guys, we're going to be coming to you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Tomorrow night's going to be a little bit of a different show. For those of you folks on Facebook, we're probably going to be broadcasting on a different Facebook group tomorrow. We're going to be probably broadcasting from the Russell County Creed group. They're going to be on with us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Russell County Creed stands for the County Recovery, Emergency Evacuation, and Deployment Group. Our brother that's been on the channel before from one of our panel discussions, Larry Hughes, is involved with this group. He's not going to be on tomorrow, but several of the other representatives will be there. It's more of an organizational call. You're certainly welcome to be there. I know they're hollering out. They're reaching out for anybody and everybody who can help out with what they're doing. But I just want to give you guys a heads up. That's probably not going to be on the Scott County, Virginia Gun Owners Facebook page. It will be broadcast on the YouTube page because this is part of our regional outreach to the folks in Southwest Virginia and all across the Commonwealth. And in fact, anywhere else, guys, if in your county, if you're watching this and you want to be able to reach out to us, guys, we'd love to have you on. We'd love to help out however we can. If you're a freedom-loving, liberty-loving, Second Amendment-supporting, God-loving, God-fearing person, individual, we'd love to have you on here, okay? And we'll try to do whatever we can to help you. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m., it's going to be a little bit more of an organizational roll call for the Russell County Creed group. We will be broadcasting probably on Facebook on their page, and we will be here on YouTube. So if you're already subscribed and have the notifications, you will get a notification for that. I guess I'm just going to leave with that, guys. Let's close out in prayer. I've said the verse of Scripture. It's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man, and I absolutely stand by that. So let's just close out in a little word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I want to thank you, Lord, for this night. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to be here, God. Father, I want to thank you personally for the blessings that you've bestowed upon myself, my family, my friends. Lord, all of those that are out there, Lord. We know there's a lot of folks, Lord, that are sick and they're afflicted and they're terrified, Lord. And God, I just ask that you'd put a touch on them, whether that be a touch of confidence, a touch of healing, a touch of joy, a touch of fellowship, a touch of confidence. Lord, whatever that touch needs to be, Lord, I ask that you put your hand on them, Lord, in a way that only you can. Nobody else can give that touch to them, Lord. Father, I'd ask that you just open the hearts and minds of everybody, Father, that ever hears this broadcast, Lord, or even if they don't. God, you have a way through the Holy Spirit to reach out to people. Lord, ask them to open their hearts to their neighbors. Open their hearts to a stranger. Lord, if there's someone that disagrees with them and has conflict with them, let them work to resolve that. Let them work to get past that and put that aside. Lord, let them work together. Let us all work together to help our magistrates keep their vows. Let us hold them accountable, Lord. Lord, when we think about a covenantal view, God, we make that commitment to you. Let our faith remain in you. But let us also hold those other folks, those elected servants, responsible for their covenant, Father. Let them hold them responsible for their part. Lord, open their hearts and their minds so that they see the error of their ways. Lord, they may not realize what they're doing. They may be doing it with true dedication and true passion and with the true desire that they think they're doing the best. But God, open their eyes to let them see what rules that you've put in place they are violating. Let them see that what they are doing is a violation of your will for mankind. Father, I just ask that you'd watch over everybody, Lord. Keep everybody safe, Lord. Keep everybody healthy. God, watch over our elected servants, Lord. Those leaders, public or not, that are helping out with the situation, Father. Keep them protected. Keep all people safe, Father. God, I just ask that there's a special prayer request in my heart for a family member going through a family situation, Father. And I just ask a special touch of prayers and a blessing from you on that situation. God, you know what it is. Father, I just want to thank you again. And above all, Lord, we should certainly thank you too, God, for all the blessings we have. No matter where we are in life, or no matter what walk of life we're in, Father, we know we can look to the Bible for stories of like Lot, and we know how bad it can be. And God, we don't have it that bad. So Lord, as we continue to push for better and better and to preserve our way of life that you want for us, let us also be thankful for what we've got, even if it's not much. God, I think a thankful heart is something very important. And above all else, God, we just ask that your will be done. And all these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Folks, thank you all for being on here. I've really enjoyed this. It's been a good call-in night. And hopefully we can do more of these in the future. I'd love to hear from you guys. And Brother Mitchell, Sassafras, Mark Rouse, DeLynn, everybody else. I know I missed a lot of people. Larry Hughes, great to see you there, brother. All the folks that are online. Anakai the One, I could go up through here and read all kinds of people. We've got just a whole plethora of great comments tonight. To all the callers, I appreciate you all calling in. Guys, to all the first responders out there, thank you all. In the front line, thank you all very much. I appreciate you tonight, guys. As always, stay safe, fight the good fight, keep your firearms close, but keep God closer, guys. Thank you all. God bless, and we'll talk to you all later. Thank you.